third hour of the Elias Macco Show. Thanks for sticking around. We've got a great hour in store for you, with you until noon. Now, we begin this hour with this story. The French government announced last month that it will no longer be using Zoom and Microsoft Teams by next year. The government will instead use a local platform called Visio. The move, part of France's strategy to stop using foreign software vendors, especially those from the United States, and regain control over critical digital infrastructure. Question now is, should Canada follow suit? Our next guest gives us a case on why we should. Vass Bednar is with us, Managing Director of the Canadian Shield Institute. Vass, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, make the case here, and maybe you can give us some more details on just how far France is going.
Yeah, so France is actually, their most recent announcement is just about video conferencing, right? So they made their own, or are in the process of finalizing their own video conferencing platform, and they're actually going to ban public servants from using Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And I was interested in that because I had been tracking a range of mostly European governments that over time have been switching away from large enterprise kind of renting software situations to building and owning their own infrastructure. And I have a lot of admiration and appreciation for governments that are willing to do that work, because I think it's really important, not just from a national security perspective, but also from a budgeting perspective.
And I mean, what do we know on if it actually works? Like, you know, I listen, if it's all fine and dandy to me, if it costs the same amount of money and it's as usable and everyone loves it, do we have any results on that front? What happens when countries ditch a U.S. product for a homegrown solution?
I haven't used Visio yet. I do use a sovereign Canadian web conferencing platform called literally freeconference.com
Yeah.
whenever I can. Again, I think there's also a broader, like, what can you and I do in our everyday lives to reduce that dependency or interdependency with big tech? But, you know, what do we expect from our governments? Seems that people are quite happy. Something called LibreOffice, which is open sourced, is increasingly popular as an alternative to Microsoft 365.
Mm-hmm.
I did take a look at, you know, we're spending about $7.5 million a year federally to rent Microsoft products, right? It's not like we buy it and we own it.
Yeah.
And in December, Microsoft announced, you know, they're going to jack that price. And that's something we see. I mean, that's not their... Those are my words. They announced significant subscription price increases. But this is also what we see in monopolistic markets, right? Once a firm becomes dominant, they sort of can exploit their customers. So I don't think that's a good situation for Canada to be in, paying more and more and more every year for the exact same service, when we could build something that we own, that is secure, and will not create a vulnerability where our information, sensitive government information, can be shared with Americans through the Cloud Act. Sorry, I'm like ending with my scariest point, but I guess I should have led with that.
Well, listen, I think there's a couple of really interesting things that you brought up, right? First things first on the competition front, because, you know, I think you're right. Like if it's Microsoft Office or nothing, and then you are forced. You're like, okay, this is what you're going to pay now. It's a racket. But if it's Microsoft Office or Gmail, right, the Google suite, and, you know, I know people who work at companies, and one day they're using Outlook, the next day the company's like, we're switching to Google, and we got a better price, and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, like, listen, I mean, you can pry Gmail away, like over my cold dead body, prying away Gmail and Google Docs, because I love those products. So I think about, you know, the usability there. I've used like LibreOffice before. I mean, maybe it's gotten better, but when I used it, it sucked. And I hate to be so blunt. Maybe it's gotten better now. So I wonder about that. But again, your last point there on the data, on the cloud, on where it goes, what should Canadians be thinking on that front?
I mean, look, we saw Prime Minister Carney mention Sovereign Cloud last fall as part of the Major Projects Office, as we're in this universe of, you know, looking to invest more in dual-use technology. Is sovereign cloud infrastructure not a dual-use technology that benefits both civilians, but also, you know, our defense capacities? We should be more alive to the risks and fragilities that have actually always been there, right? We often blame Trump in this moment. Trump hasn't done anything different from a legislative standpoint when it comes to our digital sovereignty. What he's done is sharpen, again, the vulnerabilities that we created, we co-created and sort of agreed to. And I think this sovereignty moment, when you look, it's not our first time dealing with sovereignty in Canada, even if the word is still kind of tricky to spell. You know what I mean? We've had these elements in the past. This moment is about the digital economy, right? Asserting sovereignty in a digital economy, an intangibles economy, a platform economy. So yeah, it's not trite or silly to think about email systems and file sharing as something we need to care about. Can
you make the case also on just, but if we go down that path, that it's also good for us economically? Like I have to point this out. Like France, like their economic growth last year, like it's anemic, right? And now they're going to go off, okay, we won't use your Microsoft Teams, we won't use your Zoom, we're going to develop our own locally grown solution. Now, I just look at other previous examples of like where countries say, okay, we won't use your American products, we'll make it at home. And they're not good solutions, so like I worry about that. And is it not actually still best to go with the free market and wherever it comes from and spending your resources and your money on other things?
I mean, choosing a dominant digital player is not necessarily, a free market choice. You want to avoid digital autarky. We don't need an email system necessarily that each country has made, right? We don't have to make everything ourselves. I think that's been a big conversation in terms of trade and manufacturing for products as well. But the mindset, right, the sensibility of a country that creates and owns the digital infrastructure it needs to run the country, or look at the conversations we're having in healthcare, right, where we have private intermediaries with medical records or our prescription services. We are renting back prescription data from American companies. Pharmacies are doing that. Why are we paying money for that? That's our data. That's our system. So I think it's about that kind of vision and reorienting our values more than thinking that from this one simple trick with email will revolutionize the economy. But again, more ownership and control of digital infrastructures will make Canada stronger and more resilient.
Well, and I certainly say on the data center front and keeping our data within the country, certainly much more than that can be done than always making sure everything has to cross the United States and then back at us when we want it. Like there certainly seems to me like got to be a better way than how we do it on many fronts. Vass, listen, we have to leave it there. You were great. Come back anytime, okay?
Okay, bye for now.
Vass Bednar, Managing Director for the Canadian Shield Institute.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.